The rain was supposed to start in 2 hours. Thomas Reed wiped sweat from his forehead and looked up at the darkening sky, then back at the damaged roof section he was working on. His muscles ached from the work, his gray tank top soaked through with perspiration, but he kept going. The woman who owned this property needed this roof patched before the storm hit, and Thomas was determined to finish the job. At 34, Thomas had been running his small handyman business for 3 years, ever since his wife had passed away from cancer. It wasn't much, just him and his truck full of tools, taking whatever jobs he could find to support his 5-year-old daughter, Lily. Some months were better than others. This month had been rough. He measured another board, marked it with his pencil, and began sawing. Behind him, he heard the screen door open. He glanced back to see the little girl again, the one who'd been watching him work all afternoon. She stood on the porch in a pink dress, clutching a teddy bear, her light brown hair in 2 neat braids. "Are you almost done?" she asked in a small voice. "Almost, sweetheart. Just a few more boards and your roof will be good as new before that storm gets here." "My name's Emma. I'm 4. "How old are you?" Thomas smiled despite his exhaustion. "I'm 34. "That's pretty old, huh?" Emma nodded seriously. "That's really old. Do you have any kids?" "I do. A daughter named Lily. She's 5. "About your age." "Where is she?" "She's with Mrs. Rodriguez, our neighbor. She watches Lily when I'm working." The woman appeared in the doorway then. Catherine Morrison was maybe 31 or 32, with light brown hair that fell in waves past her shoulders. She wore a red dress that seemed too elegant for a weekday afternoon, and there was something about her that seemed both refined and sad. She'd hired Thomas 3 days ago after a tree branch had damaged part of her roof during the last storm. "Emma, honey, don't bother Mr. Reed while he's working." "She's no bother," Thomas said, positioning the next board. "Good company, actually." Catherine stepped out onto the porch, watching him work. "I really appreciate you coming out on such short notice, especially with another storm coming. I called 3 other contractors and they all said they couldn't fit me in for at least 2 weeks. Well, I had a cancellation this week, and I don't like seeing folks go through a storm with a damaged roof. Water damage can get expensive fast." Thomas hammered the board into place. What he didn't mention was that he'd actually canceled a less urgent job to take this one. Something about the quiet desperation in Catherine's voice when she'd called him had struck a chord. "Still, it's kind of you." Catherine paused. "Can I get you some water? Or lemonade? You've been working in this heat for hours." "Lemonade sounds great, thank you." Catherine went inside and returned with a tall glass. As Thomas climbed down to take a break, Emma approached him again. "Do you like fixing things?" she asked. "I do. There's something satisfying about taking something broken and making it work again. Makes me feel useful, you know." "My mommy says everything is broken right now." "Emma," Catherine said quickly, a warning note in her voice. But Thomas saw the pain flash across Catherine's face. He'd seen that look in his own mirror often enough after Lily's mother had died. The look of someone barely holding it together. He drank the lemonade, thanked Catherine, and went back to work. By the time the first drops of rain began to fall, he'd finished the patch job. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold through the storm. He'd need to come back and do a more permanent repair when the weather cleared. But at least Catherine and Emma wouldn't have water pouring into their house tonight. Catherine came out as he was loading his tools into his truck. "How much do I owe you?" Thomas did a quick calculation in his head. "Materials, time, labor. $250. Catherine's face fell. I'm sorry, I thought it would be less. Could I possibly pay you half now and half next week? I'm waiting on some paperwork to clear at the bank and things are a bit tight right now." Thomas looked at her face, at the pride warring with desperation, and made a decision. "You know what? I'll need to come back in a few days to do the permanent repair anyway. Why don't you just pay me then, all at once?" "Are you sure?" "Positive." "Don't worry about it." Relief washed over Catherine's face. "Thank you. Really, you're very kind." As Thomas drove home, rain pelting his windshield, he thought about Catherine and Emma. There was a story there. A woman in an elegant dress living in a nice house but struggling to pay a relatively small repair bill. A little girl who said everything was broken. The sadness in Catherine's eyes that reminded him too much of his own grief. He picked up Lily from Mrs. Rodriguez's apartment, and as they ate dinner together, she asked about his day. "Did you fix the roof, Daddy?" "I did, kiddo." "Just in time, too. Hear that rain? The lady with the broken roof, did she have any kids?" "She has a little girl, Emma, about your age." "Does Emma have a daddy?" Thomas paused. He'd wondered that himself. There'd been no sign of a man in the house, no men's belongings visible. "I don't know, sweetheart." 3 days later, the storm had passed and Thomas returned to do the permanent roof repair. Catherine met him at the door looking tired but grateful. "I'm so glad you're here." "That patch job held perfectly. Not a single leak." "Good to hear. I'll get the permanent fix done today, and then you'll be all set." As Thomas worked, he noticed things he hadn't paid attention to on his first visit. The house was large, probably 4 bedrooms, well maintained. But looking closer, he saw signs of strain. The grass needed mowing. Some exterior paint was peeling. A shutter hung crooked. Small things, but they added up to a picture of someone trying to maintain a property that was maybe too much for them. Catherine brought him lemonade again around midday. Emma was at preschool, she explained. Catherine worked from home doing freelance graphic design. At least she tried to. Work had been slow lately. "Can I ask you something?" Thomas said, then immediately second-guessed himself. "Never mind. None of my business." "No, please, ask. Are you doing okay? I don't mean to pry, but you seem..." I recognized the look of someone who's struggling. "I've been there." Catherine was quiet for a long moment. Then, to Thomas's surprise, tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry. I don't usually... It's just been a really hard few months." "You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to." "No, it's actually a relief to tell someone." Catherine sat down on the porch steps. "My husband left 6 months ago. Just left. Walked out on me and Emma with barely a word. Turned out he'd been having an affair and had secretly been draining our accounts. By the time I realized what was happening, most of our savings were gone. I'm so sorry. The worst part is, I still can't believe I didn't see it. I thought we were happy. I thought we had everything." Catherine wiped her eyes. "Now I'm trying to keep this house, trying to pay the bills, trying to give Emma some stability, but it's so hard. The divorce isn't finalized yet, and my lawyer says things are complicated because of property issues. I can't access certain accounts, can't sell certain assets. Everything is frozen while they sort out the legal mess." Thomas sat down beside her. "After my wife died, I went through something similar. Different circumstances, but that feeling of your whole world falling apart. I know that feeling. How did you manage? With a child to take care of?" "Day by day. Sometimes hour by hour." "You do what you have to do. You keep going because they need you to keep going." Thomas paused. "If you need help with the property maintenance, I could come by some weekends. Help with the lawn, fix little things. I don't want to overstep, but I know how overwhelming it can be." "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering. And honestly, Lily could use more friends. Maybe Emma would like to play with her sometime." Catherine smiled through her tears. "I'd like that. Emma's been lonely. All her friends from before, their parents were friends with my ex. When he left, everyone sort of disappeared. Apparently loyalty is only for the winning side." Over the next weeks, Thomas found reasons to stop by Catherine's house. He fixed the shutter, mowed the lawn, repaired a leaky faucet. He brought Lily with him, and she and Emma became fast friends. The girls would play in the backyard while Thomas worked and Catherine brought out lemonade or coffee. They talked about life and loss and learning to move forward, about the loneliness of single parenting, about trying to rebuild when everything has fallen apart. "Can I tell you something?" Catherine said one afternoon about a month after they'd met. "You've helped me more than you know, not just with the house but with feeling less alone, with remembering that there are still good people in the world. You've helped me too. It's been 2 years since Maria died, and I've been so focused on just surviving, on being there for Lily. I forgot what it felt like to connect with someone, to have adult conversation that isn't about bills or schedules." "Thomas, I need to tell you something. About my situation. Okay. Catherine took a deep breath. My ex-husband, Robert, he comes from a very wealthy family, old money. When we married, his family put certain assets in both our names as part of a trust arrangement. Properties, investments, land. I didn't really understand it all at the time, everything. I just signed what they told me to sign. I'm listening. Now that we're divorcing, those assets are in dispute. Robert claims I have no right to them, but my lawyer says I do. Says that based on the trust documents, I actually own half of a significant property portfolio, land all over the state. Commercial properties. It's worth millions, Thomas. Tens of millions. Thomas sat back, surprised. Wow. But I can't access any of it while the divorce is pending. Can't sell anything, can't use the assets as collateral. I'm asset-rich and cash-poor, if that makes sense. On paper, I own half of a fortune. In reality, I'm barely scraping by. Catherine looked at him carefully. Does that change how you see me? Why would it? Because people get weird about money. Because you might think I'm taking advantage of you, letting you do work when I'm technically wealthy. Because, Catherine, I don't care about any of that. You need help now. That's what matters. Whatever happens with your divorce, whatever assets you end up with, that's future stuff. Right now, you're a single mom doing her best. That's who I see. Catherine's eyes filled with tears again. Thank you. The next afternoon, Thomas was replacing a section of deck boards when an expensive car pulled into the driveway. A man in his late 30s got out, tall and polished, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Thomas made in a month. Catherine! The man called out. We need to talk. Catherine came out of the house, her face hardening. Robert, you're not supposed to be here. This is still my house. No, it's not. The restraining order says you can't be within 500 feet of the property. Robert's eyes landed on Thomas, and his expression turned contemptuous. Oh, I see. You've already moved on. How long did you wait, Catherine? A week? A month? He's here fixing the house. Not that it's any of your business. The handyman, huh? Robert sneered. That's quite a step down from what you're used to, though I suppose beggars can't be choosers. Thomas stood up, his considerable size suddenly very apparent. I think the lady asked you to leave. Who the hell are you to tell me anything? Someone who respects restraining orders and women's boundaries. You should try it. Robert's face reddened. Do you even know who you're dealing with? Do you know who she is? What she's trying to steal from my family? I know she's a good mother. I know she's kind and strong and trying her best. That's all I need to know. She's after half of everything my family owns, millions in properties and assets, and she thinks she deserves it just because we were married for a few years. Robert turned back to Catherine. You're not going to win this. My lawyers will bury you. You'll end up with nothing. We'll see what the judge says, Catherine replied, her voice steady despite her trembling hands. Now leave, Robert, before I call the police. Robert left, but not before throwing one more contemptuous look at Thomas. After his car disappeared down the road, Catherine sank onto the steps, shaking. I'm sorry you had to see that. Don't apologize for his behavior. Thomas sat beside her. Are you okay? I will be. He does this sometimes. Shows up to intimidate me. To remind me that he has all the power and all the money. Catherine looked at Thomas. Did it change your mind? Hearing all that about the money? Not even a little bit. Why not? Most people, when they hear how much is at stake, they start treating me differently. Either they think I'm a gold digger or they start seeing dollar signs themselves. Because I've spent enough time with you to know who you are. Money or no money, you're the same person. Kind, strong, a great mother. Thomas paused. And for what it's worth, from what you've told me, you're not trying to steal anything. Those assets were put in your name legally. You have every right to them. Over the next months, Thomas and Catherine grew closer. He continued helping with her house. She and Emma came to his apartment for dinner. Lily and Emma became inseparable, and slowly, carefully, Thomas and Catherine developed feelings neither of them had been looking for. I'm scared, Catherine admitted one evening after the girls had fallen asleep. They were sitting on her porch watching the sunset. I'm scared of what this means, of what happens if we do this and it doesn't work out. Lily and Emma are so attached to each other now. I'm scared too, Thomas said honestly, but I'm more scared of not trying, of letting fear keep me from something that feels this right. What if the money changes things? What if I win the case and suddenly I'm wealthy and I'm still me, you're still you. Money doesn't change that. Thomas took her hand. Catherine, I've been broke and I've been comfortable. I've learned that what matters isn't what you have. It's who you have, who you are. I fell for you when I thought you were struggling financially. Why would having money change that? The divorce case finally went to trial. Catherine's lawyers had built a solid case, documenting the trust agreements, the legal language that clearly gave Catherine rights to half of the disputed assets. Robert's lawyers argued family intent and tried to paint Catherine as a gold digger. The trial lasted 3 weeks. Thomas took care of Emma during the days, bringing her to play with Lily, making sure she felt safe and loved. At night, he held Catherine while she cried from stress and exhaustion. When the verdict came, it was decisive. The judge ruled that Catherine had clear legal rights to half of all assets placed in the trust during the marriage. Properties, land, investments. The division was to be completed within 60 days. Robert was furious, filing appeals that went nowhere. His family was outraged, but the law was clear. Catherine owned half of a property portfolio worth over $40 million. Overnight, Catherine went from struggling to pay bills to being one of the wealthiest women in the state. Does it feel different? Thomas asked a week after the verdict. Not really. I mean, yes, the bank account looks different, but I'm still me. Emma's still Emma. The house is still the house. Catherine looked at him. Are you sure this doesn't change things between us? Positive. Though I probably won't be able to afford the kind of dates you're used to anymore. Catherine laughed. Good, because I never liked fancy dates anyway. I like lemonade on the porch. I like watching our girls play in the yard. I like this, us, exactly as we are. Even though I'm just a handyman who drives a beat-up truck, especially because of that. You helped me when I had nothing, when I couldn't pay you, when I was at my lowest point. You didn't help me because of who I might become. You helped me because of who I was. Catherine's voice grew thick with emotion. That means everything, Thomas, everything. They were married a year later. A small ceremony in Catherine's backyard, Lily and Emma as flower girls, just close friends and family in attendance. Catherine had used her newfound wealth thoughtfully. She'd set up trust funds for Lily and Emma. She'd donated to causes that supported single parents and domestic abuse survivors. She'd bought a building downtown and helped Thomas expand his handyman business into a full contracting company with Thomas as owner and CEO. You don't have to keep working, she reminded him. We have more money than we'll ever need. I know, but I like working. I like fixing things. I like building things with my hands, Thomas smiled. Besides, someone's got to keep you grounded now that you're a real estate mogul. That's what I keep you around for. Years later, when people asked how they'd met, they'd tell the story of the roof repair, of a struggling handyman who'd taken a job he couldn't afford to cancel, of a woman who'd been at her lowest point, barely able to pay for basic repairs. He fixed my roof before the storm hit, Catherine would say, and then he just kept fixing things. My house, my life, my heart. She made me believe that good things could still happen, Thomas would add. That life could still surprise you. That love could still find you even when you weren't looking. And in the quiet moments, when it was just the two of them, Catherine would sometimes say, "Thank you for helping me when I had nothing." And Thomas would always reply, "You never had nothing. You had everything that mattered. You just couldn't see it yet." They'd built their life not on the foundation of wealth or status, but on something far more valuable. On kindness offered without expectation of return. On help given to someone who couldn't repay it. On seeing someone at their lowest point and choosing to lift them up rather than walk away. Thomas had fixed Catherine's roof before the storm hit. But in fixing that roof, he'd found something far more valuable than any asset or property or million-dollar trust. He'd found home. He'd found family. He'd found love, and Catherine had learned that the most valuable things in life can't be bought or sold or divided in a divorce settlement. They're earned through kindness, through showing up, through being there when someone needs you most. Thomas had fixed her roof, but she'd given him a reason to keep believing in goodness, in connection, in second chances, and that was worth more than half the state. That was worth